Hello, and welcome to Mondays with Melissa. I'm your host, Melissa Rolfs, and I'm a holistic health and life coach. And I help women break free from sugar and stress eating so they can be calm, confident, and in control. And I'm super excited to be launching this podcast with all of you. I find it super ironic that I'm sitting here right before my 43rd birthday in 2020 launching a podcast. This year has been quite interesting. As we all know, I don't need to tell you what all has gone down in this year in the world, but wanted to really have a vehicle to share more of my story and my journey and put some good out into the world um, in true transparency, because I'm very transparent. I have written a book. I have not published and launched it as of yet because I don't want to go in debt to do that. So I'm going to save up and have that happen. And in the meantime, I've wanted to find another vehicle to share more of my story, my journey, and to really share some hope and encouragement with the world. And so this is my very first episode, and I want to share a little bit of my story today on finding freedom with food and sugar. And so I think it's important for you to understand a little bit of who I am and where I come from. So if you would be so kind as to just let me share my story, I would love to share my journey with you, and hopefully you'll have a little bit more insight on who I am. And then towards the end, I'll go ahead and share some upcoming episodes and kind of what you can expect going forward. So at the age of 2, my dad passed away. I became the only child of a single mom, and my mom started me in dance around that time. And to be clear, my dad was murdered. He wasn't, died of cancer or in an accident, but he died pretty brutally to a murder in my small hometown in Indiana. And growing up, all I knew was, being the only child with a single mom. And to, I think, kind of cope and ease the pain, I learned to turn to food at a very young age. When I was 6, my mom remarried, and remember, feeling like this was my happy ever after. And my earliest memory personally of me hiding food in my room and having mouse poop on my bed was right around that time. And this pattern with broken relationship with food continued through childhood. I continued in dance. I did lots of things to perform and really kind of paint this picture that everything was fine and good. In high school, I developed an eating disorder so that I could be thin enough to earn the attention of a boy. And looking back, I believe that was my father wound coming forward and really seeking that affirmation and validation because I didn't know who my dad was. And in high school, I continued to do all of the things. I was very active in sports and show choir and dance, and it was kind of my way of hiding some of the dysfunction in our family, if you will. I graduated from high school, went off to college at Purdue, go Boilers. Ironically enough, I had jaw surgery my freshman year, and I went through sorority rush with my jaw wired shut. And remember, because of my jaw being wired shut, I was on a liquid diet and lost quite a bit of weight, as you can imagine, being on that liquid diet for at least 4 weeks. And around that time was also when I started to exercise regularly for stress management. I remember being very stressed and overwhelmed my freshman year of college and thinking, I just need to go to the gym. So I went across the street to our little co-rec and just started working out. And really that kind of became a healthy habit for me during that time. So I went through sorority rush, and it was amazing. I loved it, got into the house that I wanted to, and really had a beautiful college experience. However, my unhealthy eating patterns continued through college. I would overeat, I would undereat, I would hide food in my room. I continued to do all of the things in college. I was, an officer in my sorority house. I was involved in Panhellenic. I did Old Masters, University Christian Fellowship, Purdue musical organizations, and I was really burning myself out and turning to food for comfort. And it was very much an all or nothing type of relationship with food. And this was all I had known. And I remember graduating from college, and I got this great job in Chicago. I was super excited to be working in downtown Chicago. And food was really my comfort. I turned to the deep dish Giordano's pizza. I turned to the ice cream if I had a bad day, and got really involved in our church young professional group around that time and really loved it, made some great connections through that. And I was only in Chicago for a short while because after a year, I was called onto InterVarsity Christian Fellowship staff in Madison, Wisconsin. And that's a really cool story I'll have to share another time. But all of this to say, I ended up moving to Wisconsin. I met my husband. We got married. We had our daughter. And that's really kind of when my journey began. I started to meet with a life coach because I knew that there was something in me that I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what it was. So I really thought a coach could help me figure things out. And shortly after we had our daughter, she was 6 months old. We had friends from church over, and we were having like a 4th of July party. And I remember she was just crying unconsolably. And I didn't know what to do. And I felt very overwhelmed in that moment. And a friend suggested going to a chiropractor. And I thought, why would we take a newborn baby to the chiropractor? You are crazy. But being an overwhelmed mom and kind of at my wit's end, decided to give it a try. And it was so life-changing for us because it was at that chiropractic appointment that we learned our daughter had an issue with dairy. And so I was nursing her, so I cut dairy out from my diet. And lo and behold, her colic got a little bit better. And the chiropractor suggested doing some craniosacral therapy because she was born via C-section, and explained that when you take a baby out of the womb in C-section, their body doesn't have a chance to go through the birth canal. And so the gravity doesn't quite work the same because you're not going through the birth canal. It's kind of like when you have a C-section, the equivalent of jumping out of a plane at 30,000 feet with the pressure. So we did craniosacral therapy, we did chiropractic. I cut out dairy, and her colic got so much better. And I was so thankful. And I think my eyes were really kind of opened to maybe alternative ways of doing things when it came to health. I remember taking her to our pediatrician, and the pediatrician said, it's colic, all babies have it, she'll outgrow it. And that was just such an unacceptable answer to me because in my mind, I'm going, my child is crying. I want to know why my baby is crying and what I can do to help her. I'm not willing to accept that it could just be what babies do. Like that did not fly for me. So I think that helped me to be open to the chiropractor experience, and it was a life changer. So shortly after that, we moved to Illinois. We had our son, and I was completely overwhelmed, you guys. My husband was traveling for work at the time. Our daughter was now 27 months. I had this newborn baby who wasn't sleeping. We were potty training our daughter. She had undiagnosed food allergies by this point, some sensory challenges, and I was overwhelmed. I did not know what to do. I remember eating Oreos in the pantry because I was just so overwhelmed. And we took our son to the chiropractor because he was fussy. And the chiropractor asked me, well, what did you eat? And I said, I ate some Oreos. And she asked how much. And I had to explain that I'd eaten the whole package because I was so overwhelmed. And she gently and lovingly explained that, you know, this isn't the best for you or the baby. I know that you're overwhelmed, but let's figure out a way to maybe take care of that without food. And that was another pivotal moment in my journey, as you can imagine. And right around that time as well, I had started a professional women's networking group called Synergy, and I loved it. So many great women. Like it was community, and we were helping each other in our businesses, and it was a life-giving experience for me. And there happened to be a life coach who came to the group, and me being hungry for growth and change and feeling a little bit stuck in my motherhood, decided I want to meet with this life coach because I want to figure out what my purpose is in the world, because I felt like there was more for me than staying home with this, baby who wasn't sleeping and child who was fussy, and I just was not in a great place myself, as you can imagine. And so all of this to say, I started to meet with her, and she also happened to be a therapist. And it was through meeting with her where she diagnosed me with PTSD as a result from trauma that had occurred in my childhood, which also explains why I was turning to food so often as a child. And I tried Prozac, and it didn't work. It made things worse for me, and I know everybody's different, so this is not a bashing of medicine by any stretch of the means. It did not work for me. So I went to a holistic doctor, and she took my levels of my vitamins, my minerals. We did urine testing, we did spit testing, we did blood draws, and discovered that all of my levels and vitamins and minerals were in the toilet. So she encouraged me to supplement, because at this point I was living off of Diet Dr. Pepper, sugar, carbohydrates. I was crying in the bathroom because I was overwhelmed. I was hiding in the pantry to eat. I was not in a good place. So she started me on this supplement regimen, and it worked very well. I noticed a difference. And around that time, we moved to South Dakota. And I remember being in South Dakota, and I took this like jazzercise class, and it was so fun. And I could take my kids to the gym, and they could be in childcare, and I could jazzercise and then sit in the coffee bar, and I just thought it was great. And I was starting to make relationships with women in the class, and I was sharing with some of them that I was eating Thin Mints in the pantry. And she was like, well, why were you eating them in the pantry? Were you hiding? And at that point, it was kind of like a light bulb, like, oh, there could be something here. So right around that time, we also discovered our daughter's food intolerances. I figured that she must have gotten them from somewhere, so I discovered I had food intolerances. And it was right around this time where I was introduced to the concept of whole foods and really eating foods in their most natural form. I cut out the foods that I was intolerant to. I implemented exercise. I started to break free from sugar. Like, I felt alive and amazing. And it was also really during this time that we met with a couple from our church there in South Dakota who really did some inner healing work with us and really helped us to break free from some strongholds that were in our past that maybe were impacting us and our mindset. And so it was really this beautiful journey of mental healing through that work with this couple, kind of the mindset work, if you will, and me changing my diet. So I believe for me personally, the combination of the mindset and the dietary change had the most impact. And so as a result of that, I felt called to help others who were where I was. I started to lose weight, and people started to notice, and they were asking me what I was doing. And part of that was Beachbody. I was a Beachbody coach, and I did the workout programs and followed the exercise plan and drank the shakes. And through being a Beachbody coach and helping other women in that way, I saw that there was something missing. I saw that their results were not quite the same as mine, and I couldn't figure out why that was. But I knew that I really felt called and compelled to help other women who were where I was, because it wasn't just weight. Like, I think when people saw me, they saw the weight loss. But what I found was I was free from the anxiety. I was free from the overwhelm. I was free from the stress. I was calm and confident, in control of my food and my life and my schedule and around sugar. And I didn't have those struggles that I feel like so many people were getting hung up in. And so that's why I went to school, because I really wanted to help other women learn how to change their habits and their thoughts and their relationship with food. I learned it's not about meal plans, it's not about calorie counting, it's not about all of that stuff I think that we tend to give the emphasis to, but it's really about your relationship with yourself, learning to listen to your body, and your relationship with food. And I think that's really where the freedom comes. I think that's where the wholeness comes. And I think that's where the health comes. I think when you have this beautiful ripple effect of changing your mindset and your habits, that impacts your relationship with food. And it changes the way that you eat and the way that you treat yourself. So that's essentially what Mondays with Melissa will be about. It will be a safe place for me to share some of my journey. I, of course, will have guests on here. And I really just desire to talk about various topics that women really need to hear about. You know, things like health and wellness and mom life, and really offering that faith and hope. So I hope that you'll join me every Monday as I release a new episode. If you have any questions, if there's anything I can do, please reach out. My email is melissa at free, the number 2, the letter B, coaching.com. I'm here. I'm happy to answer questions and serve you as best as I can, because I know what it's like to be stuck and overwhelmed and in that place. And I also know what it's like to be free, and you can be free, my friend. So have a beautiful day. I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.